Hey guys, it's the Addie Queen, and in this video I'm doing a little refresher on how to make cute little decorative snowmen. I have been making these in batches recently, so I thought I would take you guys along to work on this crazy chaos. So to start, we are on our 22 pin machine. We're going to cast on like normal, just weaving every other peg. Reset our row counter. And this is a new skein of yarn, so I am pulling as I go a little bit. That way my tension doesn't get too tight. So we do not want to be mean to our poor 22. This thing has been through it. I have used and abused this machine. It has more than paid for itself. Okay, continuing on here, we want to do 60 rows for a small snowman. I do like to make these guys 2 layers thick so they will not be see-through. They won't be like cheap and chintzy looking. I am lazy though. I am going to use my adapter on here. Okay, we're already almost done with our 60 rows. So now we're going to cut, and I leave a pretty significant tail here. Close our feeder. We're going to go through once with no yarn in the feeder. Use our yarn needle here. And to cast off, we are picking up every single stitch with our yarn needle. There we go. Now we're just taking this out. Tying it tight. And we're going to tie the top of this. Make a knot. Stretch them out. I'm going to pull this tight, and you get kind of guts, is what I call it. You want to make sure you tuck those in. We want to have a nice clean edge. I like to keep my cast on the outside. Honestly, it doesn't matter either way, but we're going to open this up and fold one end on the inside. Pulling this down. Oh, I got fuzzy. There we go. Gonna take our yarn up through the center, and you want to make sure it comes up through the center on the inside as well. Now I'm going to tie my 2 ends together really tight. We don't want this to come undone. We don't want a sloppy snowman. And now I'm gonna cut these 2. Before I finish the snowman, I'm going to go ahead and do all the work on my machine. So I'm going to lay this thing aside, and I'm going to make the hat and the scarf. So again, we're grabbing our knitting machine, and with these, I like to remember the magic number that I have created for myself is 60 rows. So I like to do 60 rows for their hat, which is 2 layers thick. I like it to stand up and look all nice and plump. And then I will do 30 rows for the scarf because I actually do a drop stitch scarf. Okay, so for the hat and scarf, I'm using this red yarn. I'm not sure the brand or anything like that. It's just old red yarn that I had in my stash. So we're gonna leave a little tail and cast on like normal. Reset our counter here. I'm gonna go ahead and make the scarf first since it is shorter to do. And the scarf is 30 rows. Okay, I finished my 30 rows. So since this is a drop stitch, we are going to cast off slightly different here. I'm going to go through once with no yarn in the feeder. And now you're going to pick either even or odd. I'm just going to go with odd numbers here. So what we're going to do is put our yarn on our yarn needle. And we're only going to pick up our even numbers. So what's going to happen here as we go around is that the stitches we don't pick up are going to fall off the loom, and what we want to happen is we are actually going to unravel them to get the drop stitch look. Okay, move our machine out of the way here. Now, depending on what type of person you are, you'll either think this is really satisfying or really stressful. We're going to pull this tight. I'm going to go ahead and come to our cast on and pull that kind of tight too. And to drop our stitches, we're just going to start pulling. See, here we go. This yarn is not wanting to drop very easily, so you gotta kind of work with it a little bit. But most of the time you barely pull and this just goes crazy. So what we're doing is we are dropping half of the stitches in our project to make bigger stitches. I'm slowing down a little bit now that we're close to our end here. Just make sure we pull every stitch out. There we go. Pull this tight. And I'm going to take our yarn needle and tie a knot. Maybe. There we go. Goodness. And not with it today. Okay. So we are just tying a knot here. Now I'm going to put my end up through the middle of my scarf and cut it off. We're going to the other end. We're going to do the same thing. Put it on our yarn needle. Tie a knot. Send it up through the middle. And cut it off. I'm going to fold that in half and set it aside. And we're going to finish this project by making the snowman's hat. Casting on like normal. Reset our counter. And we're just going to continue on for 60 rows. The same amount that we did for our snowman body. I got a little carried away and accidentally did an extra row, but just like the snowman and the scarf, we're running this through once with no yarn in the feeder. And now we're going to take our yarn needle and pick up every single stitch. There we go. Take our machine out of the way. Pull this tight. Stretch it, go to our cast on, pull that tight. I'm gonna put the cast on the inside this time. Now, with our yarn needle, we're going to go through the center. Now we're going to take both of our ends, pull them really tight, and tie a knot. And we can go ahead and cut these off. Now we have finished all of our little snowman parts. We have the hat, the scarf, and the body, and now it is time for assembly. So for assembly, the first thing I do is add the snowman's face. I'm going to be using these snowman nose buttons and some safety eyes. So I'm going to move these out of the way. Now these guys are going to stretch a decent amount when we add the stuffing. So you're going to want to add your eyes pretty high up. Go ahead and open my noses. Oh, that was upside down. There we go. So I like to put them 3 or 4 stitches down from the top. Then we're just going to snap the backs on these babies. And I keep them like 1 or 2 stitches apart. Okay, so there's our creepy little eyes. And then I use a needle and thread to attach these buttons. I forget where I bought these specific ones, but they sell these little buttons on Amazon, Craigslist, eBay. I think I saw some at my local Joann's too, but they were kind of expensive. We're gonna put our button where we like it. I usually put mine about right there. Then we're just gonna sew it on until it's secure. I'm gonna leave a little tail in the back here. That way we can tie our ends together, secure that nose on. I just like to go through 5 or 6 times. Nothing too crazy. I do kind of cheat and keep my work loose until I tie it off, just that way it's easier to find the holes in the button. I've got it looped around here. There we go. Got a little bit of a thread tangle. Sweet. Now we got it. Now we're just sewing it on. Go back down. I'm going to cut my thread. We're just going to tie these 2 ends together. Now for the somewhat fun, somewhat stressful part of this process, we are stuffing the snowman. And I know you're thinking, how in the world are we gonna make that big old hat look proportional on this tiny little snowman? And let me tell you, it's because we stuffed this thing so tight that it stretches out and looks crazy. So we're taking a white thread and running between the two layers of our tube. This is going to be how I cinch up his head. I'm just using the yarn I cut from my cast on piece, but you can use any piece of white yarn, it doesn't matter. Now we're going to stretch it out, and to make our snowman stand up, I like to put stuff that's weighted in the bottom. I'm using just generic Great Northern beans that you buy from the grocery store. You could also put marbles. You could put a bag with rice in it. Anything weighted. We want to give these guys a good way to stand up. So I like to stretch him after I add the beans. Now we're going to take our polyfill and kind of ball it up. I grab these two ends for support, and we are cramming it in there. As we cram it, I am pulling this white up around it and kind of squishing our guy together. It's okay to get a little violent with him. He's a snowman. You're not going to hurt his feelings. Pull tight. I'm going to add a little bit more polyfill to his head. Again, we're balling it up, sticking it in. Woo! Grabbing these two and kind of pulling up and around. And now we're pulling tight. Cinch him up. Now we've got like a snow potato. This thing looks so ugly. It's okay. We're trusting the process here. So I'm going to trim these two white ends to be even. Take my needle. We're just stabbing him in the head and bring our needle like out the side somewhere and cut these ends off. Okay. Now we need a long piece of white. I'm going to take our snowman between our hands and we're going to give him a little bit of love. Kind of squish him into the shape we want. So I'm working those beans down. And we're kind of pulling his head. Then we'll squish him down. So now he stands up and he's kind of the shape of a pill. So we're going to take our white yarn and give him a nice little scarf. But little does he know it's going to choke him and shape his head. So, depending on how low you put your white, it will determine the size of your snowman's head. I like to cinch it once in the front, go once in the back, and then we go around to the front again and tie off this white. I like to make a nice knot. And then we just cut this. I'm going to squish that down. Squish his head a little bit. Now, I like to put the hat on first because I use the scarf to help hold the hat on. So there's his hat. And we're going to grab his scarf. We're tying and tuck the hat in. And there you have it, a quick and easy little snowman. If you don't like a crazy big floofy hat like this, you can definitely do less rows. I like the big hat. I think it gives them character. You shape that a little bit, stands up, squish him down. The beads hold him in place, And we've got a cute little snowman. Thank you guys so much for watching this. I hope that it was helpful, and may your days be merry and bright.